We won't. We will not talk about the new airport beyond that. But you all have seen Christina's home video there. So nice work, Christina. Um, we're here to talk about energy. Becky introduced our esteemed panel. So let's just get right into it. We're going to start with my far right. But I'm going to ask this question of all of you. We'll just start with Rita. Each of you individually and your organizations represent really a critical industry with extraordinary economic impact. You as individuals and your companies, with the exception of you, Christina, could be doing this anywhere. So why Pittsburgh? Let's start there. Rita, why Pittsburgh?
Sure. So why Pittsburgh? Westinghouse is a nuclear company, and we have our roots completely in the Pittsburgh region. The first nuclear power plant that commercially operated was in this region at Shippingport, now Beaver Valley. And fast forward to today, the most advanced nuclear power plants operating around the world are of Westinghouse technology. That's our AP1000. So we have 2 operating in the state of Georgia, 4 operating in China. And so why Pittsburgh? Because we started here and we intend to stay here, but we also want to, as we've already demonstrated, continue to grow globally.
Great. Thank you so much. Tricia, how about MEPI?
Thank you. And thanks, Rita. I would certainly agree with that. My organization, we call ourselves MEPI, Mitsubishi Electric Power Products Incorporated. So to answer the question, why Pittsburgh, let me just say briefly what we do. We serve the electric power market. We serve data and data centers, and we serve transportation, specifically the electrification of transportation. And we do all that right here in southwestern PA, because we do have a lot of Westinghouse roots to our organization as well. Rita and I were talking about the fact that I started my career at Westinghouse. In fact, my company started as a joint venture with Westinghouse in 1985. That means that we're 40 years old this year in this region, serving the markets and the industries that I talked about. We're really proud of that because I think this region has such rich industrial roots, not only in steel and coal and glass, but in power, in electric. I think we have the talent here. I think we have the supply chain here, and we have a commitment to infrastructure here that MEPI is really proud to be a part of.
Great. Thanks so much. Christina, we're here really to talk about sustainable aviation fuel when we come to your part of this. Why here? Why Pittsburgh?
Well, the industry is looking for energy independence and energy diversity, just like we all are. We want to make sure that we're reliable. Baltimore went down the other day, lots of flights affected. And when airports go down, that's a problem. The airlines are similarly looking for ways to diversify their energy needs. And so it turns out that of all the airports in the world, we have all the assets that you need. We have 8,800 acres that we sit on, which is a really large airport from a landmass perspective. We're the 7th or 8th largest in the U.S. A lot of that land is available for development. We have natural gas literally under our feet, which is what powers our microgrid. We have a pipeline to the river, which means that we can produce so much of this sustainable synthetic aviation fuel that we can power the Northeast, Mid-Atlantic, and go into Canada. And we know how to build things here. So we think the World Economic Forum and Davos, all those super smart people, are looking for ways for airports to be energy hubs. And we're like, well, we got one. And I'm not paying you to tell me that I can get on a stage and talk about it. So we're doing it everywhere else. We are in talks now with a company that the U.S. Air Force has been investing in for 20 years and is flying with the fuel. It's ATSM certified. And the refinery that we want to build on the airport can take any feedstock. So it can take ethanol to support our farmers, and it can take coal mine methane to support the hydrogen economy and to clean up some of our air. That's why we're doing it.
Yeah, all good reasons. We'll get back to more specifics shortly. Troy, why Pittsburgh?
So what started over 10 years ago in a dorm room is now a company that builds robots and AI that manages hundreds of billions of dollars of assets across the globe. This region, as we've heard, is steeped in industry experience. It's got great academics where I came from. Gave us the first opportunity to build that first solution inside of an independent power producer up in Oil City, PA. Has been a robust pipeline for talent. And, ultimately, we started the company in Pittsburgh. We moved to the Bay Area for about 6 months and decided we came back. So we were one of those companies, and we had that interesting decision point. Many of our investors told us not to do that. We sort of were contrarian in that, but we felt that this region, again, proximity to the industries we served, is steeped in sort of this industrial background and access to talent pipelines that were unparalleled when it came to robotics and now AI, has served us very well. We're now a company of over 300 people, and we're very proud about what we're building here in Pittsburgh.
That's great. Thanks for all of you for that. Rita, I'm going to come back to you. David and Becky teed this up a little bit. Our regional economic prosperity is tied to energy-intensive industries, advanced and robotic manufacturing, all things AI, ensuring that we have an adequate supply of reliable energy is a major priority. Westinghouse is a leader in the space. When you think nuclear, lots of people say it's nowhere close, it's expensive. You run a very specific piece of this business. Talk about that a little bit and how that can benefit the region and the world.
Sure. So let me set the stage first. How many of you know how much power in the state comes from nuclear power? Just shout out the percentage. It's more than zero, I'll give you that. It's a third. A third of this state's electricity is generated by nuclear power. So can you imagine, just even in this room, this whole set of lights doesn't work, right? For the sound booth, all of that power doesn't work. If you're staying in this hotel, 1/3 of the floors have no electricity. And the way I describe it to my kids, when my son was 6, he's a grown man now, he didn't understand what I did. And I said, we were living in South Carolina, half our power came from nuclear power. And I said, I make sure that everything on the first floor works. The dishwasher, the fridge, he didn't care.
His video game,
the washing
perhaps?
machine.
His video game system.
Hang on. So then I said, I make sure that your video games work. And his eyes just popped out of his head. And he got it. And he's like, oh, that's what you do. Okay, fine. But to my point is, 1/3 of our power comes from nuclear, and we kind of take it for granted. The news about Microsoft partnering with Constellation and 3 Mile Island Unit 1 is poetic for our industry. It takes a name that we use every day, couples it with a name that unfortunately is synonymous with bad news, and makes a good news story out of it. And it's become almost no never mind, right? We want our devices to work. We want that AI app on our phones to work. The amount of power it takes to use an app like that to generate an image is more intensive than it takes to charge your phone from a dead battery. I'm going to use my kids as an example again, right? To charge their dead phones, it takes more power to generate an AI-generated app. So the power intensity that is needed by these industries, and we're not going backwards. We're not going to say, you know what, I'm okay with not having as much energy in my life if it's going to cost me a little bit more. That is not what we're going to see. So data centers are one application. Manufacturing industries are very, very energy intensive. Transportation is very, very energy intensive, and we are looking more towards looking at, regardless of what administration we sit in, looking at cleaner ways to power the transportation industry. And I want to poetically tie it back to SAF. One of my clients is actually looking to deploy new nuclear in their country to support sustainable aviation fuel manufacturers in their community. And so it's more than just generating electricity. It is, to your point, generating power for industry, for AI and data center applications, as well as military applications and university applications. Just in the news this week, we announced an arrangement with Penn State University to deploy our eVinci microreactor, which is a 5 megawatt reactor. It's essentially a nuclear battery. Not only for powering the campus, but also as an educational tool. And so this continues the decades-long relationship that Westinghouse has had with Penn State University, encouraging students to come into this industry. And one way that we do that actually is by sending our engineers to go and teach courses at Penn State in the nuclear engineering discipline.
Thank you. And we'll come back. We've got a lot a follow-up there. Tricia, we heard about the great news, the commitment to the region in the upcoming expansion about your new with your new switchgear manufacturing plant that will be coming online. Why the need to expand your operations? I presume expanded growth on the horizon. Maybe talk a little bit about that if you would.
Sure, absolutely. And I think David, when he started our session this afternoon, I heard him say the words that more is needed. I hear those words all the time.
Yeah.
More. You know, we partner very well with Westinghouse because Rita was talking about power generation, but Mitsubishi Electric comes into the fold to manage that power and the power quality when you're transmitting it somewhere, when you're distributing this generation. And the industries that we serve, again, electrification of transportation, data centers, they all want more. We have 40 years in this industry, and we own and operate a lot of facilities in Allegheny County and Beaver County. And the first thing we did was we tried to gain additional efficiencies, what I like to say is inside the walls, bringing in some levels of automation and try to be more efficient, more effective, and put more switchgear out into the market, more transformers, more substations, more power electronics. But we found that that just really wasn't enough. I mean, we are in unprecedented times where independently the need for power, electrification of transportation drawing on more power, data centers drawing on more power, these are unprecedented times that we're in, and we felt that we needed to make a capital investment. And this is where our local community, the Economic Council, the Regional Alliance, the PA Chamber, this conference, Allegheny Conference, and our state, of course, they really helped us take a look at site selection and understand what's the best for the future of Mitsubishi Electric. We greatly appreciated their help. We appreciate the incentives from the state that we talked about a little bit earlier. And we're just so excited to bring the first new factory for Mitsubishi Electric in decades to Beaver County. In total, it's nearly $90 million investment in advanced switchgear manufacturing and power electronics.
That's awesome.
It's going to help us bring more of that switchgear to distribute and transmit the power that's being generated. It's going to help us manage power quality. It's going to help us support data center needs, not only in the region, but across the nation. And we are just excited that we can bring more to the table with the state's help, with our parent company's support as well, and stay in this region.
Great. A round of applause for that. Everybody should be thrilled to hear about that kind of commitment. So thank you for that. Christina, you told us about why Pittsburgh International Airport. Talk about your plans. You shared a little bit about the motivation behind it, but talk a little bit more about that. And then how close are you to making it a reality? And what's missing? What do we need to get there?
Okay, so what we really need is we need offtakes from the airlines. First of all, you know how SAF gets here today? Sugarcane from Brazil is shipped to Singapore, where it's turned into sustainable aviation fuel, and then it's shipped to the United States.
Brazil, Singapore,
Yeah. So
back to the U.S.
we're playing the game, right?
Yeah.
And I don't like playing those kinds of games. And we have all of the resources here. So the next step is we have support from the airlines. We have support from a global community. So really our goal is always, my goal is to put Pittsburgh on a world stage using the lens of aviation, a global industry that can be sort of the camel's nose under the tent to say, come see what we've got going on here. And there's two ways you can do that. You do that through cargo airlines or you do that through passenger airlines. You also have the military, but they make their own decisions and we don't get to pitch them. So we are building a new cargo facility. We have Neighborhood 91 for advanced manufacturing, and we've got this energy. With this fuel, what we're really saying to the global industry is, look what we do in Pittsburgh. And for a lot of people, I know this is a shock, they don't always know that. Right? Ha ha, right? So it's for us, it's a way of saying, come see. Now, for the third year in a row, we will host the Future Travel Experience here in Pittsburgh in May. And for the last 2 years and this year, we invite airports and airlines from around the world. This year, they're holding their World Innovation Summit here focused on energy, airports of the future, and robotics and automation. And what we do is we pair airlines and airports, which are not technically really advanced from an innovation perspective, with some of the world's most innovative companies and say, what can we do together? And what this year we're going to be doing is talking about energy. So that's why we're doing it. We know that there's a cell here, but it's really about Pittsburgh Inc. It's not about Pittsburgh International Airport. It's about Pittsburgh. And if we can put all of the assets of this community to use at an airport that has a global mandate, then we are, in fact, doing our part to make sure that the world is paying attention to us differently and is looking for opportunity that they might not have otherwise considered. Did I answer your question? Because I was all over the place.
Sort of. But
All right.
we'll get back to the rest
All
of it.
right.
It's okay. I
Next
want to give
steps,
Troy
I
a
need
kiss.
the airlines to actually put pen to paper and say, I will buy the fuel at this price, which means we need some help from the PA sites to clear the land, and we need an extension of the federal tax credit on the SAF.
So you need that federal extension, a tax credit extension, and you need the airlines to sign
Yeah.
on the dotted line.
Yeah, and we're working on both.
You're making progress.
Well, we hope.
We hope we're making progress. We're headed that direction. Okay.
They're ready to announce anytime for a final investment decision between this spring and next.
Yeah.
And it's 2 years to build. We could be producing in a matter of.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah,
That
no, we're ready.
Okay, great. Troy, you got a big week. Gecko announced last week, congratulations on a new $100 million contract with NAES, which is America's largest independent power operator. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Another round of applause. Gecko, you mentioned it earlier, you've got this unique potential for economic growth because of the collaboration and because of the industrial nature of the region. You're really this great Pittsburgh success story. Talk about what in the region beyond what you've already addressed, like what's helped fuel your growth in terms of being here in southwestern Pennsylvania.
Yeah, and so we're very excited about this partnership with NACE. We've been building towards this moment.
Okay, it is NACE. I should have asked you
Yes.
prior.
Just spelling out the acronym works too.
I'm an obvious guy.
And so we've been building towards this for the last 10 years. And one of the things that have been unlocked is we had a data foundation that we were building for the last 10 years about how is the built world actually operating. Materials like steel, concrete, composites. How do we diagnose that, the health of it, and how do we use that information to operate and maintain it more differently? Now, this is a 40-year-old company. They have never seen a technology stack like this before. And the opportunity, and just to give a little bit of a backdrop here, we have electricity reserve margins that are never been lower in our region, regions throughout the U.S. And I think one of the thoughts, and it was good intentions, but that we would have something to close that gap. That gap was often deemed as renewables. There's challenges with permitting, connecting to the wires, etc. along the way, and so what has happened is we need to be, and then the backdrop of, okay, we have real growth opportunities now, electrification of vehicles, electrification of industry, data centers, AI, onshoring of manufacturing. And so what's happening is there is a rush into electricity. And the thing that Gecko has long thought about is how do we make sure that we can meet those demands in the future? And again, are we going to think about the new build capacity, or are we going to have to go back to the old stuff that already exists? And one of the things is, we have about 1,300 gigawatts of capacity here in the U.S. We're actually not utilizing all 1,300 gigawatts. There's more that can be produced, but you can't just do that. You can't just open it up without having a feedback mechanism to know, are we, running through our equipment? Are we being responsible? What's the feedback mechanism? And so our technology stack is enabling, and we're jointly going to market here with an opportunity to go after all these new players that are coming into the industry. It goes beyond the traditional independent power producers and the electric utilities, but it's the hyperscalers, it's the tech companies that want to shore up their power needs. And so we're really driving efficiencies at the facility level. And prior to this, we had challenges with workforce attrition, new folks coming in, not having the tools they need. Now, all of a sudden, all that can be augmented with robots and AI that actually allow us to build that future facility, to augment the individuals that power the world today, and allow us to meet the opportunity in front of us, which I think is incredibly motivating to all of us, that we're going to have growth.
So you think the demand is really strong moving forward?
I think, the experts have a range on this, and we have model efficiencies and things that can, create, but probably 15 to 25% growth.
Yeah, it's great. Congratulations. Keep it up. Rita, you sort of level set us in terms of nuclear. Talk about your piece of Westinghouse, the AP300 small modular reactor. Talk a little bit about that, and where are we in terms of deployment of that technology, and how fast to market, and so on and so forth.
Sure. So AP300 is a 330 megawatt small modular reactor. It is a PWR, pressurized water reactor, that is akin to our AP1000, but it's a smaller derivative of that reactor. And as I mentioned, AP1000 is operating successfully around the world, in China and here in the United States. The reason we designed and developed this small modular reactor option is that we have, I recognize that there's a market out there that wants a reactor that has a smaller footprint, because land often comes at a premium around the world. And two, that there are clients that want a shorter construction time and smaller capital outlay for a nuclear power plant.
And I'm sorry, when you say smaller, give everybody a context, because you've got that great
Okay.
sort of backdrop.
So if we were on a Zoom call, what you would see in my background is a soccer field, very akin to the Highmark Stadium across the way. And you would see my plant behind me on 1/4 of that pitch.
So it's a quarter of a
So
soccer.
a quarter of the safety-related footprint is 1/4 the size of a soccer field. And so why that matters is that, again, land comes at a premium at almost every place around the world. And the smaller that the plant is, the closer you can put it to population centers. So when we're talking, as an example, that we have a data center as a client, they want to be as close to that boundary, that security boundary, as they possibly can be. At our Vogel sites in Georgia, we have neighborhoods that are right across the street from the boundary of the power plant. And so if you can shrink that footprint, you can have these plants located more so in more dense population centers, more urban population centers. On the timeline piece of it, so AP300 is based on that proven AP1000 technology. We are in the final stages of completing the design. Because it is a new design, you still have to go to the regulatory body in the United States, which is the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, and get that licensed. But because it's based on an already licensed design, the licensing pathway, the regulator says, will take about 2 years. In addition to that, then, right, you get the license, you still need to procure long lead items. The very heavy forgings, the large forgings, you need to do site-specific design and licensing. Those 3 things put together typically take 3 years. My ask of those of you that are in the manufacturing sector, I would love to bring some of that manufacturing to the state. For the heavy metal forgings, because right now we rely on some clients that are, or some supply chain partners that are out of state and out of country. And so if we can bring that in, I can shrink that timeline, because if they're in state, I'm hoping that I also get favoritism to get to the front of the line as well. And then we deploy first nuclear concrete, shovel in the ground, first nuclear concrete, to deploying and connecting it to the grid. Or behind the meter, if you're behind the meter. First of a kind is still going to take 4 years. And so everything that we can do to accelerate that is to our benefit. This is based on proven technology, by the way, right? So there's other technologies that are considered generation 4 and they're further out there and they will take longer. But I'll share with you that AP300 is an 80-year asset, 80. So once it is connected to whatever that grid looks like, you've got it running for generations.
Right, right. So to be able to control some of that supply chain, as you were talking about, like that's key in terms of quicker deployment, right? And hopefully here in the Commonwealth. Yeah.
Right. And I'll add, and I don't get paid to say this, but one of our key suppliers is Curtis Wright out in Cheswick. And so if we can have more of that in the region, it helps us, it helps our customers and our clients in the end because we've got an order book that we can place with them.
Yeah, great. Tricia, you explained a little bit about why the need to expand. Obviously, market conditions and market factors, I presume, are driving that. What does that do for MEPI longer term? I mean, this is the first plant you said that will come online in quite some time. What's the capacity or sort of what's the, what do you see coming that makes you believe that is so needed at this time?
Sure. And again, I mentioned that all three of the markets that we serve are growing independently.
Yep.
But they also share infrastructure with each other and software systems, and they're driving the growth of the adjacent markets. So when you're making a big investment like that, everybody wants to know, well, what is the return? And so we did a lot of study, not only inside our organization, but with local help in the community. And understanding these markets, we really do predict that you're going to continue to see growth until we reach those net zero carbon goals. And a lot of counties, states, data centers, commercial entities, they've made net zero carbon goals out to 2040, 2045, some as far as 2050, some are sooner. You're going to need decarbonized technologies to meet those goals. So if those goals are out into the 2040s, 2045s, then we see that as growth. We see that as growth for our products that really help power utilities and large commercial customers reach their decarbonization goals. We do that with new technologies that we're developing right here in the greater Pittsburgh area. We're transitioning away from an insulating gas that's one of the most challenging greenhouse gases and we're moving to vacuum switching. That's a hard thing to do, but we like to say that we do the hard things. And so we're developing that technology and we're manufacturing right here in southwestern PA. Power electronics are going to be needed to bring on all of this renewable power generation. And they're actually going to be needed to manage this incredible fluctuation that's going to come from AI generative load that the data centers are managing. So our technologies are needed across multiple industries, and we see that kind of demand continuing for years. So we hope to be serving in this greater Pittsburgh area for decades ourselves. And when we look to the future, what we see as critical is manpower. We need manpower to succeed, and we need technology and manufacturing to succeed. And automation and robotics is part of that. So a lot of what we're talking about on this panel today is really interrelated to the success that we're going to have together for the region.
So I know we're running a little bit short on time, and we do not want to keep the governor waiting, or you from the governor. So I'm going to ask everybody sort of one final question. And Christina, let's start with you. What do you see as the biggest strengths and opportunities in this region, sort of broadly, to be able to bring to market, in your case, SAF?
The workforce.
Workforce.
We build things here. We know how to make them.
Yeah.
We have a long history of doing it. I will tell you that the architect walked through the airport recently and said he has never in his life seen better construction. That's a big deal. I think that is what everybody wants, is they want a workforce they know that can do it and will figure it out if it's something new in terms of technology or build. But I mean, there's a reason that we sourced 90% of the materials from this market, is because we still make things, we still build things, and we have the people to do it. So that's what I think is a massive, massive strength.
Great. Troy, same question for you.
Yeah, I want to offer Rita support in this because she mentioned, heavy forgings. I think the ecosystem that we have here can be invested in. Gecko, I talked a little bit about the sustaining side of things, and we have to let our assets that we have be extended and be efficient about doing that. But on the new build side, we are working with the Navy to produce nuclear reactors.
Hmm.
And we know that castings and forgings is a huge bottleneck to that problem. And it all comes down to how do you make sure you have quality assurance? How do you have efficiency through the supply chain? How do you have supply chain visibility? Because it all starts with raw steel. And if you start with poor raw steel, you're going to get a poor end product at the end of it. And so it's really this end-to-end visibility, kind of closing the digital thread is what we call it for the Navy. And I just think tremendous opportunities with the partnerships that exist here in the region, and then the resiliency of the people here. That's the thing that is threaded in our culture at Gecko, and the thing that I see in our region is we are all a group of resilient people.
Great. Thank you, Troy. Tricia, anything to add to that on your end?
I'll echo the importance of our workforce here, but I'll also bring to the table cost control. As a manufacturer, we still have to manage costs. And to do that, we have to advance manufacturing. And so we are really challenged. Our next hurdle is to bring more automation and robotics into manufacturing that will help manage the workforce challenge that we have, that we're trying to get through, and hopefully help keep our costs under control. That always remains important.
Great. Thank you, Rita. We'll wrap it up.
I'll pile on to the workforce piece. The thing that keeps me up at night is not, do we have the technology? It's
Yeah.
not about the regulator. It's not even about the financing, though I am happy to talk to the investors in the crowd later. It's the workforce. We have so much demand that is coming down the pike. We don't have enough people in this industry. So for those of you that have kids, neighbors, nieces, nephews looking to enter into the energy market, tell them, yes, do that. And we need everybody from accountants to engineers, physicists. I've worked with English majors in the industry as well. So it takes all different disciplines to contribute to the success of this industry. And then I'll also add on the manufacturing piece that we need a lot more manufacturing that can benefit our industry to be in this region. That would help quite a bit.
If nothing else, tell your children that Rita will keep their video game consoles
There we go.
operating each and every day. Big round of applause for our panel. Thanks, Rita, Trish, Christina, and Troy. We appreciate it. Thanks very much for coming out, everybody.